do with a live stream wasn't going to work. So here, should I start over and like kind of introduce myself again? Well, anybody that's
Everybody know, yeah.
everybody. Well,
I
hey,
wouldn't worry
the
about
two of
it.
you guys that are watching us, hey, we love y'all. Thanks for watching the show tonight. I hope that the audio is good, but I cannot take the presentation off my iPad and watch it like I normally do. So anyway, thanks again. We got several things to help you guys out tonight. So Mandy, if you're ready, if you want to, do you need a couple more seconds?
No.
Okay. So,
So,
what's topic number one tonight?
someone said I have an old dog. Should I train them?
You know, I run into a lot of, I go into a lot of different homes and I see a lot of different things. The vast majority of people that are actually coming to us are actually looking for help to be able to just get their puppies started. But every once in a while, we're running into situations where there's maybe 3 or 4 dogs, maybe 4 dogs are like they all need training, and maybe you even have a 6, a 7, or an 8-year-old dog. So I guess the question is that if you have an older dog and maybe you also have a new puppy, should you go through the process of training the older dog? My answer is yes, and here's why. I just see, on the other side of any course that you end up taking with us, or any time that you begin to train your dog, that training always is going to improve the lifestyle of the dog, and it's also going to help you to have a better understanding of who your dog is. So you should definitely, most assuredly, train your older dog. Now, let me kind of give you some information that I think is important. When I'm actually working with dogs, when working with families and their dogs, I want to train 3 major skills. I want to train stays. I want to train how to move together, like leash walking or competitive heeling. I want to train dogs to come when called, or even doing retrieves. So when I start thinking about senior dogs that have been living in your household for a long time, the thing that I actually would recommend to everybody is that they would actually train their dogs for 2 things. And the 2 things that I recommend for senior dogs that haven't previously gone through some kind of training is to learn a place stay, and then to also learn how to come when called. Probably if your dog is 8 years old and you've been walking it, that the walks are probably pretty good if you haven't previously contacted a trainer. But teaching your dog how to stay on their place when you have a very new and excitable puppy, you would not believe how it actually de-escalates problems, okay? I see it all the time. There's one family that I'm working with right now that I'm thinking about, that they've kind of got that dynamic that they're bringing in a new dog. They've got another like young dog that's a little bit older than the new one, that is very afraid of the new dog, and then you have an older dog that's very, very excited. So we started all of them on their training, but it's really going to be the younger 2 that are going to do all the training, that the stays, the leash walking, and the coming when called. So all of those dogs are going to do that, but the oldest dog is only going to do stays and coming when called. So yes, please train your older dog. It'll really help you to have a better understanding of who they are. It'll improve the general obedience and the way that all your dogs get along together. And heck, it might even improve the relationships that you have to your other family members. Okay, so what's next on the list?
Next is what happens if I do not train my dog?
So there's a lot of things that happen if you do not train your dog. I actually got a pretty serious phone call from my office manager from Gerda yesterday about a family that was reaching out to us, and I just got to tell you the situation that this family was in. They had one of these giant breed dogs, and the giant breed dog was about 3.5 years old. And the thing that had happened is that dog now, so giant breed dog, there's a man and his wife. I don't know if there was any children involved. I don't believe so. But now the husband was leaving to go to work, and I'm making the assumption that the husband was leaving for several days and wouldn't be there, and then actually had to deal and then the wife had to deal with this giant breed dog, 3.5 years old, and essentially every time she went to see this dog that weighed more than her, he was growling and lunging, and her personal safety was really at risk. And so what's at stake if you don't train your dog? I'm just
I asked your mom if it's frozen, but I think it's frozen. Because it's not playing on my devices.
Okay.
And I didn't want to say anything until I knew for sure.
Yeah, let's take a look. Well, it looks to be working fine on this side.
On both of my things, it's just...
Yeah, I can't, yeah, it says that it's live there. Here, try to kill that one and see, because that's a different one, yeah. So we're probably still
Well, it
alive.
should be the same.
Let's try again. That one looks good right there.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to find out. Hey guys, sorry for having any technical issues with it. Again, we're running directorless, but I should know how to use my own iPad. Yeah, like there you go. Yeah, I think it's not really sure.
Mom says it's working.
Okay, we'll keep it work. We'll keep it going. What was the question? Since I lost my train of thought.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
What happens if I don't train my dogs? You were telling about.
Yeah. So what has happened? What had happened in this particular circumstance is that this giant breed dog, 3.5 years old, was now coming after the wife because the husband had done all of the training up to that point, and now these folks are reaching out for help. They're afraid, and unfortunately, these folks were outside of my service area. But really at this point, I'm like, what do you do when you have a dog that's physically larger? You're going to have to tell the dog that you can't treat me like that. You're literally talking about getting into a fight with the dog. Mm-hmm. And how are you going to deal with that? So look, for all you guys that may own larger breed dogs or giant breed dogs, it's okay to put training off for a little bit. You know, I see it all the time. It's not too late to train your dog. But if you have one of these dogs and you're starting to see that they're not necessarily listening to you, they're not necessarily respecting the boundaries that you're setting, then I got to tell you, you should really get started with any dog before they're 1 year old. But I definitely recommend starting before they're 6 months old because there's a lot of advantages to do that. So the risk that you're running is now this particular family is in a situation where the dog's life is at risk because if they can't find somebody, then the dog may attack the woman. If it does that, the woman could be in stake for bodily harm or be killed herself by a dog because that stuff does happen and obviously it's very scary. But then the other thing that could happen is that maybe the human relationships, maybe they decide to separate because they didn't end up training the dog. Now, these are some pretty extreme situations, no doubt. But I'm telling you that if you decide to get any of these really giant breeds or very powerful dogs like, my German Shepherds, if you get something like that and you don't go through the process of learning how to lead those dogs, it can really, set up some very dangerous situations for you. So please, 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 if you're watching this, and you have a giant breed or a large breed dog and you need help, I would love to help you to train your dog, even if it's for free, because we're putting out a ton of resources. But please do yourself the favor and don't allow yourself to get into the circumstance where your dog is now extremely dangerous and you don't know what to do, and where you feel that your personal safety is at risk. So please reach out, and if you have to, just one more thought. If you have to, send that dog off to a board and train situation where you're also going to get trained by the trainer to be able to help you to overcome those issues. But yes, reach out for help if that's you. Okay. So
we have a question.
Okay,
on
great.
YouTube. It's about excitement peeing. Okay. And it says, any tips for a 6-month-old that urinates when she first sees my family members come inside?
Hey, thanks so very, very much for the question. Okay, as a matter of fact, I just shot video this week of that very situation, and I hope to have it out to you soon. So make sure you stay tuned here to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do that, because that will be a video that you can watch. I'm going to go ahead and give you the explanation that I gave the family. So this family was already doing place training. They were doing place training But every single time that their dog would get to anybody that was at the front door, the dog would immediately pee. If they just bent down to pet the dog, or if they were just got in close proximity to the dog would end up peeing. So here's what we did. We put the dog on their place. We had a leash on them. Okay, and then we started going through the process of ringing the doorbell and having somebody come in. We were staging real life situations. And we actually intentionally wanted the dog to break the play stay. That means the dog came off of the bed that they were supposed to stay on. And we wanted the dog to do that for the very purpose of using the leash, putting the dog back on the bed slowly. And that's an important part, putting the dog back on the bed slowly, but without allowing the dog to get to the person that they were excited to see. And doing that until you saw the dog actually de-escalate. Here's the thing that I've seen happen with excitement peeing more often than not. It is the moment that the human touches the dog that actually gets them to pee. Now, that's for sure. Another thing is just like if you just bend over the top of the dog, you're going to get that. The precursor to all of this, though, is excitement. So if your dog gets excited, you got to use your leash to de-escalate them. Well, and you might say, well, Al, what do I do if I don't have my leash? You're going to have to wise up. You're going to have to put a leash on your dog. You're going to have to start anticipating when that's going to happen to prevent it from going. Now, here's the really great news. 99% of dogs will grow out of this by the time that they're 8 months. But that might be too late for your carpet, and you probably don't want to have pee on your clothes either from excitement peeing. Understand that it can be a real big issue, but your leash is going to go a long way. Just one more tip, okay? If your dog is excitement peeing, that just means that they may be living an excited lifestyle, and I really want our puppies to be able to be excited. That's why we teach them the treat toss game. But I really want you to practice calming the dog, multiple times throughout the day. And the single easiest way to do that is just by having a leash on the dog throughout the day, because the leash really does a great job of having a calming effect on puppies. Okay. Hey, thanks so much for the question.
My dog, when he was a puppy, I got home and I picked him up because I was excited too.
Yeah.
And he peed all in my face.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I've like guys, I can't tell you, but I've been peed on so many times by dogs over the years.
It's
so
nothing.
it's no big deal to me anymore. But yes, I get peed on a lot. Okay, so but it's just one of those things. But I will tell you this now, just thinking about it. Like if your puppy is having excitement peeing, please don't correct them for that. It's don't correct your puppies for excitement peeing.
Just bring them out of the house.
Just get them out of the house, get them to pee. But I do kind of feel that the two things are unrelated. I feel that puppies peeing where they're supposed to go, like true potty training, and excitement peeing are two different things.
Yeah.
It's just it's a defense mechanism that any creature that believes that it's prey, including humans, will do that kind of behavior. You will pee your pants if you're afraid of something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
see that.
have you peed your pants before? You just kind of shook it.
No.
I might.
But I was imagining if I was having a near-death experience.
Sorry, guys, we didn't mean to blow you up right there.
I can imagine situations that would make.
Yeah, I could imagine a drop coming out or something like that if I was really nervous or something.
Anywho, you ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready to move on. What's next?
How can I get my kids involved in training my dog?
I'll tell you what I've done quite a bit of with dogs. If you train with me, you're going to learn that there are complications because there's timing. You have to know how to use your leash. You have to know how to lure the dog properly. You got to know which hand should you have the leash on. You have to also know hey, when should I actually be saying my voice commands? And then you have to be patient enough to let all that stuff work to get the dog to do what you want. And then after that, you got to reward the dog and you got to teach the dog that your voice is actually important. And everything that I just said literally fits in a 2-second window. And so that's hard sometimes for people. You know, and we teach some things to be able to do that. So, look, I'll tell you, if you have kids and you're trying to get your kids involved, which I absolutely believe that you should do, I think the first place that you actually start training with kids is showing them how to reward the dog well. So we have this little game that we play, that I play with a lot of families. What we end up doing is, let's just say that we're teaching the dog to be in a downstay on their bed. So the mechanism that I used to teach people is the dog is in a down. We've walked away several steps, and the dog is staying. And the next thing that we say as humans is we'll say, "Good dog." And what I begin to teach the kids, and I teach the parents to tell their kids, is every time that you hear us say, "Good dog," then it's your job to calmly walk over to the dog and dispense the food to the dog for whatever we said "good dog" for. So if the dog is in a down, you say "good dog," then that's the cue for your kids to calmly walk over to the dog and dispense the food. And I really like doing that because, one, is teaching the dog that, oh wow, the adults can move the kids with their voice. And it also teaches your kids how to begin to approach a dog calmly, so that way the dog can begin to respect them the way that you actually want your dog to respect your kids. After we teach kids that, after we teach the kids to respond that we say "good dog" and then the kids go and feed, then I begin to teach the kids to say "good dog" first and then go and reward. And then I think step 3 would be, once the dog is understanding how to do a skill, like how to go to their place by using the leash, I'll give the kids the leash. And I'll tell the kids to put some tension on the leash and to tell the dog to go to its bed. And we're probably, 200, 300 repetitions. This might be 2 days into a training program. And then we teach them to say "good dog" and do that. So getting your kids involved is an important part. Make sure that you start off nice and slow, teach the kids the reward mechanisms, and then teach the kids how to use the leash to tell the dog to actually do something. I tend, for kids like preteens and younger, when it comes to teaching dogs no, I don't let preteens and young children, tell a dog no. I make that the sole responsibility of an adult to be able to tell a dog no, so that way we really emphasize the meaning of no and teach the dog that they should avoid doing the things that lead to no. Don't allow your children to punish the dog with a leash, but they can definitely punish the dog by not giving the food when the dog begins to get excited. That is a good way for kids to get involved.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah, let me show you something, okay? Go back to YouTube. Okay. And so if you flick apart and then I think you do this, you'll keep both of them on the screen.
All right, but then it blocks my.
Oh yeah, then it blocks
can't
out.
see if people.
So now that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, hold on. Oh, look at that. So now hit play again. Is it going to play that way in split screen?
I don't know.
Okay, let's leave it there.
I
Let's
really
leave
don't
it.
like split screen.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying,
But
like, if you
yeah.
want to, you have this big fancy
Yeah.
iPad right here.
Since it's like, yeah.
Okay, there we go. All right. So what's
Okay,
next?
so I'm punishing my dog for bad behavior, and they are still being bad.
So there's something missing. If you're punishing your dog for bad behavior and they're still acting bad, then that means that there's something really, really big that you're missing. And I tell this to clients all of the time. So punishment, when you're thinking about punishment represents probably, it should be less than 1% of what you're actually doing with a dog. Mm-hmm. The punishment actually creates the boundaries for the habits that we want the dog to have. So if your dog is doing bad things and you're punishing and they're still doing bad things, I'm going to say that the vast majority of time that's pointing at that they don't know what you actually want them to do. What do you think? You think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Like if you're punishing and punishing and punishing, okay, which could be termed abuse. It could be possibly abusive if you're just punishing and punishing and punishing, and the dog is still not
They're
doing.
obviously confused.
They're confused.
They're not clear on something.
So one thing that you want to do when you have a dog that is really confused, or that you're actively punishing and they're still doing the bad things, then you need to really slow down, and then you really need to make things very simple. The simplest thing that I could tell you is I want you to imagine inside your home what would be the perfect thing for your dog to do. Make sure that your dog is hungry. Take them to that thing that you want them to do, whether it be, lying down or sitting by your side, or, whatever it is. And then actively feed them there for the next 5 to 10 minutes. And then do that for maybe 3 or 4 days and see if that doesn't begin to make a difference. I think that for people that are actively punishing their dogs and they're still getting bad behavior, you got to look at 2 things that you might be doing that are actually detrimental to the relationship that you're having with your dog. One, you may be free feeding your dog, or your dog may be entitled to meal times to where you say every day at 7 a.m. or 10 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. they get a bowl of food, whatever it is, whatever type of schedule, that you just put a bowl of food down. And then the other thing is that your dog is inside your home and then they're constantly loose. And it's just like you're a firefighter and you're constantly putting out little fires all over the home because your dog isn't listening to you. This is why we really recommend, having a treat pouch, having a food pouch that you're putting your meals in, and then having your dog wear a leash in the beginning. And then using your crate wisely. If you're not using a crate or some form of containment, then you definitely have to have a leash on the dog, and you got to have food on you. And then you got to begin to, play with the dog. But punishing the dog that doesn't know what you want it to do is definitely not something that, it's abuse. It really is. But you got to be very clear with the dog. You got to be patient with them. Just imagine trying to explain to a human what you wanted them to do without getting to use English. And that's what it's like for your dog the vast majority of the time. And it's a pretty difficult thing. It's interesting because I have videos. I've never put any of them up, but we have videos of I actually put a leash on a human and then I communicate to them the way that I would to a dog. And the human has a really difficult time trying to figure out what I'm asking them because I don't use my words, but that's what we do with dogs all the time. Mm-hmm. We communicate and they're like, what does this even mean? So, take a step back from punishing for a little while and see if you can actually communicate more clearly what would be the best things for your dog to do. And if you don't know what those things are, just check out this channel. There's a ton of videos here that could really help you. Okay, what's next?
If you were to get a dog, what would you look for?
So I look for different stuff than other people do. I tell a lot of people that, when you first get a dog, you should get a dog that is not overly excited. You shouldn't also get like the shyest one, but you should maybe get a dog. You should maybe get a dog from like a rescue organization, and you should also get a dog from a reputable breeder. I think those are the things that I recommend to people. But what am I looking for in a dog? I'll just be honest. I'm looking for a Ferrari. I'm looking for a dog that can do it all, can do it very fast, and this might be interesting to you guys. I am looking for a high maintenance dog. I was telling a client the other day that I want a dog that is able to do every single thing that I can imagine and that would challenge my ability to manage their daily life, that they would be that much of a dog. Like, yeah, that's the first kind of like the general idea of what I'm looking for. Now, there are some other things that I'm obviously looking for. I want the dog I want the dog's parents to have phenomenal or exceptional health. Like, I don't want them to have hip and elbow dysplasia. I want their hearts to be healthy. I want their eyes to be healthy. I want real healthy coats. I want all these really wonderful things for the dog, for the parents. The other thing I want is I want temperament. And I don't want just any temperament. I want temperament in spades, where the dog is very, very tolerant of, people putting hands on their faces, people sticking their fingers in their toes and doing all these things. But then I also want a dog that will work without giving up, without personal regard to itself. I think that's pretty important to me. That can be kind of a double-edged sword when you have a dog that will really push that hard to do something, and they could possibly actually injure themselves because how hard they're trying to get stuff done. So, I actually put this question on there. It wasn't one that we actually received. My motive behind putting this question up is that I've been at this game of training dogs for 14 years now, and I made a life out of it. And if all those things that I just described sound interesting to you and you've never had a dog, that's not the kind of dog that you should have. Your first dog should actually be a pretty easy dog. Should be something that's coming from a reputable breeder or a rescue that's saying like, hey, this is a pretty mild-mannered dog. It's pretty easy. Don't go and get a Ferrari. Don't get a working line, a high-end working line German Shepherd that was the pick of the litter for your first one, because you may just be in over your head very quickly and you might be putting the dog in a bad situation. The good thing is if you actually if you're going to talk to a good breeder and you're saying, hey, I saw this video of a dog and I want my dog to do that, and then they ask you, have you ever owned one? They're not going to give you a dog. They're not going to give you one of theirs. But that's not to say that it doesn't happen. It happens all the time that people get really very active dogs and they get a lot more dog than what they want. So even though dogs are really cool, can do some amazing things, make sure that you're careful about getting too much of a dog for yourself, because it can be tough on your family. So get something that you can learn with. Doesn't have to necessarily be the best, but then as you get more skills and you get more savvy, then begin to add dogs to your collection, and maybe someday get yourself a Ferrari, because they're a lot of fun to drive. All right, so what's next?
How do I teach my dog to be quiet when we're on walks?
I think we just put a video up on this, and so what do you think, Mandy? How are your dogs on their walks? Are they pretty calm around other dogs, or do they
most of them? There's one who, yeah, if we happen to pass another dog, he wants to go and meet them. And
would you say that it's playful, or is this dog?
Yeah, no. Yeah, none of my dogs are aggressive in that manner, and they don't necessarily sit there and bark at people or dogs. They just want to go, and they try to pull me over to them, and that's my biggest problem there.
So what do you think? What do you think are some things that you could do differently to kind of de-escalate that from happening?
Well, I mean, I could work on training.
Yeah, you could train your dogs,
yeah,
right?
I could train them.
You could train them. So like if you were to train them, and you're in the house, you're about to walk out, where should the training start? Like you're thinking about I'm envisioning your house, and you're about to walk out. You're in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And you're about to walk out.
They should probably maybe sit by my left side.
Hey, that's not bad. That's pretty good. So a good place to start, like Mandy's saying here, a good place to start is teaching your dog the importance of being on your left-hand side. One thing that can make it real easy for you right there is if you have dogs that are getting excited when they see other dogs on your walk, have a treat pouch on you. What side of your body should it be on? It should be on the left. It should be behind your hip. And then when you do that, you would feed your dog there. One thing that I notice, and this includes me as well, I tend to rush out the door and not really being thoughtful about what am I actually teaching my dog as I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. So a piece of advice that I've been giving to a lot of families lately, and I actually want to put this piece of advice in front of the one that I just dispensed. So the first piece of advice that we dispense is to actually reward your dog for being on the left-hand side. And most people would tell their dog to sit, and then they would do that. But the thing that I actually recommend is having the leash on the dog, having their collar on them, having the leash loose and opening the door to where we're going to start the walk, and letting the dog go out without permission so I could bring them back in. And doing that a number of times until they looked up at me and said like, oh my gosh, you're actually not letting me go out, or you're letting me go out and you just turn me around and you've already done that 4 times. If you can open the door to your home without giving an obedience command and your dog doesn't rush out, you are now ready to give your sit command. But if you can't open the door, and then if you can't open the door, you know, and you're saying sit and your dog is super excited, you're making, so I'm going to tell you, any of these critical doors, your front door, the door to your garage, the door out to a street, any of those kinds of doors, what I recommend is create no obedience. Show your dog that you will turn them around an infinite number of times at that gateway, at that door. And then once they're looking at you like, what the hell, are we going or not? Then that is actually when you go about creating obedience. And I coach people on this all the time. You know, as I'm sitting here looking at you guys, I tend not to talk to people unless I'm directly looking at, or unless they're directly looking at me. And it's interesting to me, the dynamic that I see when people are walking with their dogs, and their dog gets all the attention by something else other than them, and then they immediately begin to speak. But if you were to do that with a human, it wouldn't really mean that much. What you would do with a human, interestingly enough, that wasn't looking at you, that had their attention somewhere else, is you would touch them. You would go about touching them to get until you got their attention. So that's where your leash, and yes, that's where your remote collar actually come in to get attention from the dog. And then once they look at you, that's where I think it's the best time to talk. So be real careful right there. You know, when you go out for your walks, start it at your doorway, teach them to de-escalate at the door before you get there. And then if they're distracted by something, actually don't talk, and use your leash, and in conjunction with it, your remote collar if you're doing remote collar training, until you get attention back on you. And then that's the best time to actually say something. Doesn't mean that you can't get your dog to sit. You can use your dog to sit and to become calm, but you won't be able to say the sit command effectively because something else in the environment has more attention than you. So that's my take on that one.
Yep.
All right, what's next?
Well.
Oh, I like that second one. I like that. Yeah, let's do that one right there.
How do I stop counter surfing when I leave my home?
Well, so how do you stop counter surfing when you leave your home? Well, don't be so messy and leave food all over the place. You know, that's really I was like, really? I'm like, you're gonna, you know, you have a problem with your dog counter surfing? I'm like, how are you actually watching this? If your dog is counter surfing, are you like watching them on the camera as they're eating the food that you left out on your counter?
Or there's stuff missing, yeah.
Like, yeah, you know, so I just kind of think that, you know, look, I'm going to give you away.
Even dogs that don't counter surf.
I'm going to give you away. Well, you know, like, well, how do you keep them out of the trash can? How do you keep them out of that? Or how do you keep them off the couch? Well, look, so the real easy way, okay, is I'll give you this, okay? There is an easy way to do it. I've run across these devices a couple times. I actually own one. I don't use it for this, but there is a device called the Scat Mat. Some of you guys have been watching the show for a while, maybe have heard me talk about it. But a Scat Mat basically is a plastic, it's basically a plastic like mat. It's a plastic mat that has a wire running through it, and you connect a 9-volt battery. And when any creature, humans included, you know, touch it, it sends a signal through the wire that something's touching, and then you feel that sensation, and it is none too pleasant. Sure, you could do that. I don't really know that you should. You know, yeah, clean the countertops off. But look, here's one that actually I ran into a couple of years ago. So I went over to meet this family, and I was just getting started with them. And I went to go sit down on their couch, and they had some kind of seat cover on there, and I really didn't pay attention. But the moment I sat down on the seat cover, it played a really, really loud beep. It just startled me. It wasn't electricity.
Okay, I was like,
like no, you were kind of thinking that. No, I did not sit down on I did not sit down on a scat mat. It was a scat mat, but they also make a scat mat that actually plays a very high pitched, kind of shocking sound. And I quickly stood up after I did that. And so that might be enough to keep your cats and your dogs and, you know, any other creature from doing that. But the main thing is like, when I leave my home, I do leave my dogs out, but I tend to keep nothing that they could get into out. I do have a little problem with Gabby right now in the trash can, so I'm managing her some before I leave. But she is on most occasions right now getting put up when nobody is inside of my home. But look, the scat mat is definitely one way to do it, but you could use the electrical one, you could use the one that's sound based, but I think the right answer for counter surfing dogs when you're not home is simply don't leave anything out on the countertop, because one, it could be dangerous for them. So there's my take. All right, what's next?
Yep. How do I teach my dog to give me treats gently?
Yeah, this is a common question, and so for those of you guys that don't know me all that well, I really love the German Shepherd breed, and the German Shepherds that we get are working line German Shepherds. That means that they have the ability to do protection work, among some other things. And so these dogs actually have a very hard mouth. That means the way that they take things, the way they grip things, it is forceful. So if you're trying to teach a dog to be gentle, I've actually taught Gabby that, but I didn't actually start teaching it until she was 2 years old, and I had already done a ton of self-control exercises with her. But I do want to help you. If you have a dog that's actually very rough on your hands, then there is a technique that I use. I don't think I have any food on me right now. Let's see if I have some in this pouch right here. Yeah, I've got a piece. And here comes Gabby. So what I want to show, you're not going to be able to see it well here, but inside the palm of my hand, I have a piece of food right there. And so what I do as a technique is I make my hand go flat. I make my hand go flat, and then I pin my thumb over it. And then when I go and dispense it to my dog, the dog is going to come with their mouth to come and grab it, and then they're actually able to take it. And I do that. The one thing that I do not do is I do not hand dogs food like this, because if I do, they're very likely to chomp down on me. Once your dog actually knows some self-control, you will be able to do that. But it's just so much better. It's just so much better if you take the food in the flat of your hand and then let the dog get it out that way. Okay, that will be a lot more useful for you than teaching your dog to be gentle before you've gone through a lot of self-control exercises. Hi, Gabby. Yeah, you're a good dog, Gabby. Okay, so what's next?
What do you love most about being a dog trainer?
Oh man, I've thought about this question a lot, and there's just so many things. There's so many things that I really enjoy about this journey. I started Longoria House about 9 years ago, and at the time, I had been laid off from a job, and I had had that job maybe about 2 years. And the reason I had that job was because I was in the restaurant industry for over a decade, and actually went bankrupt. Had to close my restaurant. I tell this to people all the time, and this is not an exaggeration. We were literally 1 day away from losing the home that I'm living in. So I was 1 day away from being homeless. So it was a pretty hard time in my life, just seeing the end of my restaurant career, losing my job at a company when oil and gas in town went really bad. And so I started off as a dog trainer because I couldn't find work for 6 months. And I thought, man, I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm a hard worker. It's going to be really easy for me to be able to do that. No, it was not easy. So I became a dog trainer out of necessity. But as I've been working it through the years, the one thing that actually started for me is I had Jasmine at the time. And I just loved to train with her. I loved how happy she was. I loved how we would work together and do all that. But as I became a professional, the thing that's actually really meant the most to me is to work with you guys and your dogs, and seeing the changes that it makes in your family. Over the years, we've changed kind of the tagline for the company. And the tagline currently, I think it's just really true. I have so much desire to help families raise happy and reliable dogs. And I just really feel that I'm personally at my happiness when I'm inside your home training your dog. Yeah, I love to come home, and don't get me wrong about that. My family is incredibly important to me. My employees are very important to me. But I gotta say that, like, anytime that I'm going through something hard, we're gonna have a bowl of water here in a second. Anytime that I'm going through something really hard, just putting myself in front of families and starting to help them giving back is really the thing that drives me the most right now. Right now, I'm working like I've never worked before, because we're really trying to do something special with Longoria House and Al, the dog trainer. But I just love to train dogs. I love to help people. It's brought me a lot of fulfillment. It's a great career, but it's not a career for everybody. One thing that people maybe don't know is I drive about 600 to 800 miles every week across the area. And I'm really happy because I just bought a new car, and my car is getting over 40 miles to the gallon. And so I'm really, really happy about that, that I'm able to do that. So tomorrow I'm actually going to go spoil myself a little bit with my car and get a new car stereo put in. So thank you guys. But yeah, I'm just have such a passion for helping people. And I think now that I've been doing this for some time, the one thing I was thinking about today that I want to do better, and I know that I'm doing better, but I got to continue to do it, is I want to learn how to articulate to you guys exactly everything that's going on in my head about what gives me this ability to communicate to dogs and help them so much, and how can I put that into words, into videos, into these live shows, and into my virtual reality videos. And I want to give you all of that for free, because I just know the impact that it's had on my life. And so if I've never said it to you, I really just love you guys so very much. We want to help you. If you need help, please reach out. If you know somebody that needs help, please reach out. Send us their name. Share this video with them. Hey, and I know I haven't said it yet, but if you would love to help me right now, there is one really easy way that you can do that. One, if this is your first time watching me, please subscribe to my channel. We're putting out, Mandy's helping me a lot. She's working her butt off to put out a ton of content that we're documenting throughout the week. But please subscribe if you haven't already. It means a lot to us when you like this video. If you would like this video right now, that helps us to get found, so that way we can help more families. And then, maybe you share this video with somebody. You tell one of your family members, one of your friends, one of your coworkers, just like, hey, there's this dog trainer guy I follow, and he's got some pretty interesting things to say, and he's wanting to help families. Maybe share us with them, and that just means the world to me when you guys do that. Okay, so how about one more question, and we'll wrap up with that.
Okay, why do you talk about calmness so much?
I didn't always. I didn't talk about calmness for a long time because I really was just kind of unaware of how to help you guys to understand that calmness really is the key to having well-behaved dogs inside your home. For as much as I like excited dogs because they do like some really, really cool stuff, I'm really beginning to realize how untrained dogs and humans that are yelling at them, their voice commands, really only produces discord in your family. And so we're constantly preaching calmness. One mistake I think that a lot of families that I train with make, and I see that, and I'm constantly coaching people, is that we'll teach a dog how to stay on their place, and then the dog begins to see the reward mechanism of going to their place and staying there. And then what happens is that the dog does it on their own without a human actually telling them to do it and imposing the rules that you have to stay there. And they'll reward the dog, and then as soon as any excitement, anything new enters into the environment, the dog immediately loses its mind, gets excited, forgets all the training, because now the bed is not the most rewarding thing, it is now the new thing that entered the environment. And so practicing calmness is not just the dog being in a calm state of mind, but actually the dog being told or communicated to that you must become calm. And it could just be as simple as 35 times in one day, you gently lead your dog over to the bed using your leash, and you put them on there and you reward them. But skipping that part of using the leash to put them there actually allows them to stay in that aroused kind of state of mind. Just simply putting a hand on them has a calming effect. This is something that I heard a few weeks ago, and I'm just going to use Mandy here for a second. It's interesting to me that as humans, we have receptors right here that's meant for us to be able to communicate with other humans. This is the one area of our body that we have a really hard time getting to, but actually allowing this touch from another human actually has a calming effect if we perceive them as non-threatening. So with your dog, if you're looking to have a calming effect on them, there's something very similar to touching them on the back. Not petting them and not stroking them, but just touching them there and leaving your hand there with some gentle pressure can really have a de-escalating effect. But it takes time. I've been practicing this, and I really want to look into it a little bit more before I kind of tell you what I've discovered. But my initial thoughts are about 5 or 6 seconds of your hand on the dog's shoulders without petting and without talking will have a calming effect on the dog. Mandy, do you have anything that you want to add? Anything you'd like to say before we wrap up? Okay, well, guys, hey, thanks so much for watching us again. This is Mandy. I'm Al, the dog trainer. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We love you. We appreciate you, and have a good night. Take care.
Bye.